Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Careers Mare podcast with myself, Jordan Andrews, and my gorgeous host, Jacob Power.
Bonjour.
How the bloody hell are you doing?
I'm doing extremely well, Jordan. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain. I've been living the dream, mate, as I'm sure you are too.
And as our guest will be doing by the end of this podcast.
Oh, yes. Every guest we bring on, they say, "Oh, Jacob, Jordan, help me. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing." And we guide their hands through their past jobs, through their current jobs. And then at the end of it, we create them their dream job. And then just like Mary Poppins, we drift away.
Drift away, and then we get sucked into a plane engine. Or at least that's what happened in the Simpsons episode.
Oh, with Sherry Bobbins. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet, but we are prepared for the eventuality that we do get sucked into that plane engine, and we do have a lucrative death in service package as part of this podcast.
Yep, and I am also wearing chainmail. Nice and chewy for the plane engine.
Oh, you do make me laugh, you.
Oh, thank you. Guess you do as well.
Yeah, we've got a good friend of ours on, someone that we've known for a long time, actually. Someone that we didn't go to uni with us, but someone that we've known since we were in uni. Has helped us in our comedic endeavours, has personally helped me a lot with my improv, and coached a whole group of us, actually, going up to Edinburgh Fringe to perform an improv show, which we are eternally grateful for. And her name is Lucy Fennell.
Yeah, Lucy is great. She lived in Southampton, and she got in touch with the then president of the Comedy Society that Jordan and I were a part of, because she is very collaborative. If she's somewhere, she wants to be in touch with the people who are doing comedy there. She's good at networking. So like Jordan said, we did a lot of fun stuff with her, and she brought a lot of experience and level-headedness and discipline to our undisciplined student comedy, which was very welcome. She has a rather unusual job, which is that she is an intimacy coordinator. You heard that? An intimacy coordinator. So she coordinates intimacy.
Which may sound a bit blue, but that's exactly the opposite of what it is. So get your mind out the gutters, listeners.
Yep.
And get to know that job, because it is very important in the creative industry. Fascinated to hear about it and learn more about it. And also all of the odd, strange jobs that Lucy's had along the way that have brought her to that point. So we think you're really going to love this one. So I think maybe it's time we bring Lady Fennell on. Don't you think, Jacob?
Lady Fennell.
So what we've been doing is starting from the beginning, and we've been asking everyone, when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A Blue Peter presenter.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm having a scarf issue, but do you know what? I'm gonna leave it on because it's very much tangled up with the wires, which maybe means I wouldn't have been a very good Blue Peter presenter. Because they do have to be quite dexterous, I think, and and good at reacting to unusual situations. Yeah, I wanted to be. I don't know if I wanted that from like a young age. I think probably as a kid, I wanted to be an actress or a Disney princess or something like that. Yeah, definitely something creative. And then when I was, I don't know, maybe like 12, I guess, or a bit younger, I definitely thought I wanted to be a TV presenter, and specifically Blue Peter. Very wholesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is really nice, yeah. Did you have a favourite Blue Peter presenter?
Connie Huck. It's Connie Huck. Of course. And now, of course, she writes Black Mirror. Some of it.
Oh, yeah. And she's
married to Charlie Brooker.
Married to Charlie Brooker, yeah. And her sister is an MP.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Rupert Huck.
Ah, Yeah.
There you go.
So good family.
Yeah.
Solid.
So, because obviously being an actress, being a Disney princess, being a Blue Peter presenter, you're always going to be on stage and in the limelight. Has being a creative person, has that always been in your blood, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's so many home videos. My parents catching me. Precocious probably doesn't even do justice to it. I don't think. I mean, is precocious a good thing or a bad thing? I can't really remember.
I don't know
I think
what
it's
that
not
word
very.
means.
I don't think it's very good. I think a precocious child is. I don't know. But I was very make believey, very dramatic, and my parents had like a bit of film footage of me sat at the top of the stairs. Had a little pretend kiddies dressing table. I was about 3 years old, and I'm like brushing my hair and like singing a completely improvised song about something. And I honestly so young, and then like used to pretend to be able to read before I could read and things like that. And yeah, just like a lot of made up stories. When me and my sister used to play like make believe type games, and my sister had a stutter when she was growing up, which she wouldn't be upset with me mentioning, I don't think. But she would be like, please just stop, Lucy, it's too sad. It's too sad. And it was like, I had put so many sort of poignant moments into this, just like, well, but you have to choose between your child and your father. Things like that. And she'd be like, Papa, please, it's just too sad. So there was always quite a lot of pathos in a lot of my children's make-believe stories. So yes, in the blood, possibly in a way that therapy has helped with in later life.
I guess that's quite common in like like children's films or like fairy tales. There's quite a lot of like scary or heavy stuff going on, really.
Yeah.
Like the good thing for me about having quite young siblings is I get to see how weird children's TV is now, and how completely like airy, like there's nothing bad happens. It's like this weird kind of world where it's all a bit uncanny valley because everyone's just smiling all the time, and it's just a bit like yeah.
You've not got like Land Before Time, have you, anymore? Where did you ever see that, Jordan? Land Before Time,
little bits around my mate's
with the
house,
dinosaurs, and it was a guy called Don Bluth, who was kind of around the same time as Disney, and all those Disney films in the 90s, like I guess late 80s maybe, but just always had far more sort of harrowing realism. So it was all about the dinosaurs becoming extinct, or the ones that were left over trying to find the one bit of green land that was left where they could graze and stuff, and it was all just very heavy. He did as well, I think he did Fievel's Great Mouse Adventure, if you remember that one.
No.
Again, about a little mouse that's like orphaned, and he has to make his way in the world, and he gets lost and washed down drains and things. It's just like and it's really scary. Not scary, but just like heart wrenching. And I think my mum deliberately sat me down in front of quite a lot of things that she thought would evoke empathy, and maybe that just went too far.
Become too empathetic.
Yeah. Empath fatigue. Yeah.
So was there were your parents creative at all?
Not professionally. I mean, they just read me a lot of stories, and I learnt to use the VHS player very, very, very young. Play, Play, was the first thing I ever learnt to spell.
Oh, really?
Aged about 2, just because my mum was like, I used to get up at 4 a.m. And so my mum was like, for God's sake, this is the one that says play. We'll put the VHS in the night before. You can get up, wander down, and just press play on the VHS. So I mean, yes, she was creative in her solutions to try to get in bed. She used to also wrap up toys for me that I already owned in paper bags, so I couldn't suffocate myself, but so I could just unwrap things and just would get her like another 20 minutes of sleep. But so I don't know. I think my mum's pretty creative. She used to work. I mean, she raised us for most of her time. She definitely spent doing that. But before us, I think she did various things, including like designing the shop window displays and things like that. So she's always been quite visually creative, and also a creative problem solver. My dad, I don't have him down as a creative person, but now I've just said that, the obvious thing is he's a magician.
Your
Is
dad's a
he?
magician.
Yeah, he was in the magic circle. I mean, he does it as a hobby now, and it wasn't his main breadwinning job or anything, but he takes it very seriously. And it's just his studies just absolutely just full of. He just downloads lots of magicians' very complicated books about what's the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and all that kind of Derren Brown stuff, really.
Right.
Yeah, and so he's got loads of stuff about different card tricks and illusions, and the psychology of it really interests him. And he's just got it all scrawled down. I don't know why he like downloads it, and then just like his way of learning it is to just not write it word for word, but reinterpret it and write down his notes and then read over his notes. And so he's very like that. And yeah, so growing up, he used to do our children's birthday parties. There was a very good occasion where, the first thing he did when he wanted to do magic, he turned up at a magic shop in Covent Garden, I think. And he just went in and said to the guy, like, I'm just beginning and I want to buy some starter magic tricks. And the guy said, do you want some of the good stuff? And sort of winked at him and then locked the whole shop up and took him round the back and down into a basement, where he then flogged him a load of really shit stage illusions, like from the 50s that were made of wood. And one of them was a sword through the arm trick, which was a wooden contraption with 3 holes, one for a balloon, one for an arm, and then one for a balloon, and then a genuinely very sharp sword, which then would go through, pop the balloons and go through the arm in the middle. But the idea would be, and I don't think I'm going to be shot by the magic circle for saying, that you would select a lady with a very slender forearm for the illusion, and then the knife would just bypass her arm and not go through it. So at one of our birthday parties, my dad selected the mother of one of the children who was there, who just happened to be a police officer. So she was actually really ripped. And so her forearm was quite chunky. Not chunky, but like muscly. And the sword went through and drew blood from her arm. So when she pulled her arm out, and my dad says, and there's no blood whatsoever. And then there was blood all down. And so from then on, my dad would only use my little sister as the person in that trick. I mean, it didn't stop him from doing the trick.
Yeah, good. Yeah, do that then. Yeah.
Go for it, Stephen. And so then again, coming back to my poor sister with her little stutter, she would go, do it, Dad, but be very, very careful. Just really sweet, which I only remember because we've got it on video again.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment. Yeah.
How has that given
wow.
you, like, what view has that given you of magic tricks? Because my uncle is also a really good magician.
Wow.
And I'm so desensitized to it, especially because every time I've seen another magician, it's been less impressive than my uncle.
Right.
And my uncle he's so good, he's so unassuming, but he always carries a trick wherever he goes, and like he'll just do it to the person in the shop, just like a really quick one. And they actually make me angry because no matter how many times I've seen it over years since I was a child, they're always so good that I go like, actually, how did you do that? And I get really like wound up. Like,
you're the people that they have to avoid.
Yeah.
You're the people that they shouldn't pick to help them with the trick. Like, actively avoid the people who actually find it angering.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's not my only emotion. That is mixed with admiration, of course. But there's like, I remember one that sticks in my mind is, it was a classic, like, pick a card, randomly. And I always think, okay, so he's going to try to suggest to me that I should pick a certain card. So what I sometimes do is I'll look around the room until I see like a number or something, like if there's like a number on a greetings card or something, and I'll pick that number, and then I'll think, okay, whatever I was going to pick, I'll do that number over, or like left or right. So I'm trying to make it as random as possible to make myself immune from suggestion.
Wow.
And then I guess I did something, picked this card randomly, and he put it back in the deck, and he said, okay, and he got out his wallet, and in his wallet was a photo of his son. And in the photo, his son was holding the card that I just picked. And,
Beautiful.
And I was just like, what? How is that possible? That must be actual magic.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And then,
yeah. I mean, that tends to be my opinion, is like, whenever I have been shown the solution to the trick or how to do it, in a way, that's even more impressive, because there isn't, I mean, I'm not very dexterous with anything like that. And a lot of anything that's to do with, memorizing stacks of numbers or quickly working out, especially things to do with numbers, is not my strong point. I always just think, well, actually, that's even more impressive. The actual doing of the trick, the executing of that trick is as impressive as the illusion that trick creates. And so, yeah, I find it amazing, but I am definitely a little bit jaded by it. And I also think magicians are like some of the strangest people in entertainment. I don't know if that's fair or not.
Yeah, they're kind of like
Kind of odd.
Yeah. If you get all the different camps you have in the entertainment world, magicians are definitely like one of the ones out on the periphery. Like,
yeah, along with ventriloquists.
Yeah.
What was your first ever job that you did?
My first ever job, I worked in a hotel in Lowestoft, where I grew up, on the seafront. The hotel was on the seafront. I didn't grow up on the seafront.
On the beach.
On the beach, yeah. I was a seal.
Lucille.
Seal,
There you go.
exactly.
Lucille
There you go.
Exactly, yeah. So I worked in the Hotel Victoria. I was thinking about this the other day, because I think I was certainly not old enough to have a job. I think I was 13. And my friend Alex had maybe said to me, oh, I've just got this part-time job after school at this hotel. And I was like, yeah, I'll come along. And I was definitely paid maybe £2.80 an hour. And yeah.
Ching
Wow.
ching.
Yeah, in cash, in a little brown envelope every 2 weeks or something. Yeah, and I had a little blue waistcoat and a name tag. And it was a 4-star hotel. And we did silver service, so I had to learn to sort of do the quite dramatic napkin off the table and across the knees of the person, and then when they'd close their cutlery, know to go in and take it away, and offer them bread rolls, to do that weird thing with a fork and a spoon where you have to make it into tongs to pick up a bit of bread roll. Have you ever done that?
No.
I've watched people do that before. I've never been able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's like that, and that's good for radio, isn't it? To do some miming. But anyway,
So you're kind of using like chopsticks. Is what
yeah,
that
sort
looks like.
of, but yeah, sort of. But anyway, so I used to do that, and then I used to have to make butter curls. So we'd have to go down. I'd go down into the basement of the hotel. It's quite scary, and sit down there with a big block of butter and a butter curling implement, and then a big bucket of water with ice cubes in, and then you'd curl the butter and flick it into the bucket of ice cubes, and then the next morning for breakfast you'd have to go and fish it out and put the cold butter curls on a saucer. What a faff. And I used to eat as many chocolate mints, like after dinner chocolate mints. We had a bucket of them in like the serving area. I used to all night just unwrap them and eat them and sort of stick them on the roof of my flat to eat as many as I could. That and icing. When we did a wedding, there'd be loads of like icing off the cakes left.
Oh, could you eat icing?
Yeah, I used to cram the icing.
Oh, I love icing. Yeah.
Really? I think that's like, I've got quite a sweet tooth. I feel like that's too much concentrated.
That's why my teeth are so good.
Yeah, they're actually made of icing.
Yeah, they are. So I did that. That was good. I mean, it's good fun because I was working with my friends, and they'd have to send you home at 10 p.m. because they'd get in. I think they were worried they would get in trouble. Maybe it was legal. I don't know.
Is there a
sound
legal? What's the legal age? Because I remember when I got my first job, I think I was like a week or 2 weeks away from turning 15. So I think they were like, "Oh, well, we'll have you on a trial period for 2 weeks, and then when you turn 15, we can actually register you as working here."
But I was 13.
Well, I've punched it up on the old dial, and the youngest age a child can work part-time is 13.
Oh, okay.
Except
Absolutely
children,
above board.
And this is something actually an interesting exception I never thought about before, except in children involved in areas like television, film, theatre, modelling, because obviously, like they'd have to be younger, wouldn't they? Unless all children in all films would have to be 13 or over.
Which loops round brilliantly to a lot of the work I do, but we'll come back to that.
We will.
Yeah.
But they can't work full-time until they're 16.
Yes,
There
that's
you
my
go.
first job.
Great. And how long were you in that job for?
It wouldn't have been too long, maybe a couple of years. And during that time, I also managed to get my sister a job playing the piano. They had a grand piano, and she used to play the piano in the foyer for a lot more
great.
money. I was, my £2.80. She was on like £20 an hour, and she'd sit there playing and playing pretty much Fur-Elise the whole time. And then she'd be like, I'm just gonna, can I finish now? And then my mum would be like, no, she'll do another hour.
So that money went into the family coffers, did it?
It didn't, but just mum was like, there's no way you're missing out on a £20 an hour job. If they'll have you longer, you will keep playing Fur-Elise for as long as they will have you there to do it. And she used to play like faster and faster as well. It's just...
So I'm guessing, like a lot of us when you're a teenager, you just bounce around from like quite a few different jobs.
I worked in my uncle's kiosk in Beccles, ice cream kiosk, doing Mr. Whippy's. You'll see a theme here. Stood in the back room, eating all the flakes.
Nice.
Just pushing flakes into my mouth.
Well, I guess...
sorry, Uncle Barry.
I guess sort of the butter thing prepared you well for that, dealing with cold, rippled dairy products.
Exactly, yeah. It's good, very good to do Mr. Whippy's, very therapeutic. Yeah, I liked working there. It was like a shop for people who were staying on the quay as well. So people would come in to get their groceries, and we did teas and coffees. So that was good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I did as a kid that I should bring to the fore. I worked in like an Italian restaurant at one point. Just, the normal kind of jobs that you do. Bouncing around, doing different things. Yeah. I didn't work at uni when I was at uni.
And in the Italian restaurant, were you at the back eating the pepperoni, or were you like were you actually back in the kitchens? Or was
no, I wasn't. I was waitressing.
Facing?
I was waitressing.
So you promoted out to deal with the.
I tell you where I did
eat a
work.
Bit of food out on the plate on the way over.
Slurping the spaghetti up like Lady and the Tramp. I worked in a bar in Lowestoft called the Edge Bar. Yeah, because it was on the pier. It's on the pier, pointing out, going into the sea. And I worked there during all the time, but also during events like the air show and also Christmas. And it was that cool thing where, I don't know if it's cool, but where people would buy a drink and then be like, and one for yourself. And you'd kind of be like, okay, I'm going to do a shot of water and then take the £2.50 and add it to my tips, Great. Absolutely brilliant. And just the tips was quite exhilarating because I wasn't used to that. And also because the band The Darkness originated in my hometown, in my high school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they played
love Justin Hawkins.
I know. They were great. Yeah, I love it. And their song Friday Night is all about my high school's extracurricular activities.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember it, so I won't try and sing it. But so they played on one Christmas, and I found £20 on the floor that night. So that was pretty good when I was cleaning up.
That was not where I thought that story was going.
No, it wasn't. But that was when before there was a smoking ban. So all I remember from that job is just coming home and just being like, every single time you go to work, God, I'm going to have to put all my clothes through the wash and wash my hair again. So annoying. And you forget that was how it was.
Isn't it weird when you watch even what seemed to me to be fairly recent programs, like Black Books, for example, and all the time people are smoking in pubs and restaurants, and it actually is shocking. It's weird now to us to see that, even though within our lifetime, within memory, it was.
Oh yeah,
it's had such an impact.
When they brought the smoking ban in, I think it's shut down now, but the Applegarth Social Club in Fortnightly, you used to be able to go in there and pay 50p and go and smoke in the back room.
50p?
Yeah, so they just let you get away with it and smoke in the back room because they had a big snooker table in there. So I remember going in there with my granddad and he would just disappear, and then me and my cousin would play pool and he'd just be in the back just chaining and playing snooker with his mates.
Oh, I haven't told you about a weird job I had. Oh my goodness me.
Go on.
God, how did I forget this? I didn't make any notes. I thought, let's keep it fresh. But I do need to tell you. So I don't know how much I can say. I presume that the NDA has run out. But I worked on the Trisha Goddard show as a runner.
Really?
Yeah.
Trisha Goddard is.
As in
I've got a
not,
picture of her.
not Jeremy Kyle, the black woman who did.
Yeah,
Trisha.
yeah.
Trisha.
I know.
Yeah, Trisha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's come under a lot. Those sorts of shows are obviously sort of morally bankrupt and were at the time, but have been revealed to be even more. There was a documentary about the Jeremy Kyle show and the tragic circumstances around one of the people on the show taking their life after having been on that show. And I think, I don't know, do I get into libel if I start to say, I don't know. Let's say that I think that was congruous with the way those sorts of shows were run across the board in terms of the way they approached different people in society to come forward and be on those shows and what they were promising in terms of resolution to those people's issues, but how the shows really relied on those issues not being solved and instead being made worse. So that was I was a runner on that show. And yeah, from what I remember, I was on like a 24-hour contract, so they could essentially sack you at any time.
Wow.
Which was wild. And there, I guess there's some terrible things about that show that I remember, but I wonder whether I could get sued for it now that the show's not on. I don't know. Maybe I'll say it and we can think about that later. But people would arrive and these, so-called guests and say it was like a mother-daughter tiff or whatever. They would separate the mother and the daughter on different corridors of the studio's backstage bit, and then the researchers would do what they called talking up. So they'd go and speak to each of those people individually and like sort of heighten everything and get them really riled. And they'd take their phone. We had to take their phones off them. If they had children in tow, which they sometimes did, they'd go into like a pretty basic nursery type setup. And so it was really bad. It was, to say the least. And but some of the things that I found quite funny and interesting about it was whatever the subject was, they often needed like little idents, I guess, or like little in between video-y moments to kind of have as people were talking. So if it was like an obesity special, they needed people eating 20 Big Macs or something. It'd be like, my son just eats 20 Big Macs a day and we really need to help him. And so they'd need somebody to volunteer to sit and sort of munch into 20 Big Macs that they'd just film like a small portion of the mouth eating the Big Mac. So we'd all be like, yeah, me. And there was one that was about like, my neighbour spies on me in my back garden. They set up a trampoline. They needed somebody to bounce on a trampoline over, like looking over a fence. And so there was that. And then there was like, just terrible things where it'd be like the phobia special. And then say, right, Lucy, we need you to go out the front and receive the delivery of bees.
Sentence you just said, Lucy, we need you to receive the delivery of bees.
Were they like loose? Were they like they rolled up the back of a van and they just swarmed out?
Just me with a net. No, they arrived in like a tank. So they'd, somebody would obviously go on, profess how scared of bees they were. Then they'd be like, bring on the bees.
Oh my God.
It's terrible, isn't it? Absolutely.
British TV back then was just insane, wasn't it? Do you remember, what was it, My Fat Diaries?
Was that real life or a...
That was real life.
Was it?
It was that presenter who would go round and be like, I'm here in Huddersfield seeing a bunch of fatties who are so close who are so obese, they're going to die if they carry on. And he would just go into their houses and just berate these people about how overweight they were.
Yeah,
and obviously it doesn't work, like when you just shame people into trying to lose weight. But yeah, it's just that whole era of Jeremy Kyle and Trisha and all that stuff.
But the Americans were doing it as well, weren't they, with Jerry Springer and all of that. So not that makes it better.
Yeah, call it what it is. It was just poverty porn. Like
Benefit Street and all that as well. Terrible. Mind you, we're not that much better, are we, with all of the like Love Island stuff? And I don't watch any of it, but all of that stuff's pretty morally bankrupt as well. I think.
Definitely.
So that was a weird job. And then I was a teacher. after.
So was that? Did you when did you do that? Because we
I
were
did
talking
that
about
in
uni.
between.
Was that before or after?
So I did it after I graduated uni and before I did my PGCE. What are you laughing at, Jacob?
Just before we move on, I have to ask. So it seems like quite a random success. So you had like working in a hotel, working in an Italian restaurant.
I'm perfect
and then
for
I
this
was a runner
podcast.
on the Trisha
Yeah.
Goddard.
I honestly,
and then
it gets
we can't
weirder.
we can't move on without establishing how you got that job because it seems like it's so random that you just suddenly were doing that job.
Well, I sort of still thought I wanted to work in TV. But this is the irony of it all, right? Thinking I wanted to be a TV presenter. So I had kind of pushed to try to do that. So my dad's friend is a cameraman. And so I'd like got a few bits of work experience working on the Tracy Beaker show and Holby City and things like that. And so I kind of thought, I'll do an English degree because that's quite broad. And then I can try to, if I want to try and get into TV and film, I can. Which, yeah, after Trisha, I was like, I don't want to work in this. This is awful. This is a horrible industry. People are terrible. This is terrible. And I was like, I'll give up on that. And then I've ended up working in TV and film without really even trying to. So the Trisha Goddard show, I guess I wrote loads and loads and loads of applications to different people. I also got a place on the Edinburgh Television Festival. It happens sort of alongside the Edinburgh Fringe, actually. And it's sort of a coming together of everybody in TV. And there was like a sponsored place for young people to go and kind of be given a fast track into the industry, including like a chance to do your own presenting reel, which I did, and I was just terrible. And that does exist somewhere, and I'm glad that I don't know where it is because I very much discovered I couldn't be a presenter. So yeah, I think I probably got that job off the back of wanting to do that and maybe some contacts that I made through that. Yeah. So then I abandoned it and thought I'll be a teacher instead.
And did you become a teacher?
I became a teacher. I did a PGCE in English and media and drama, secondary school. It was really hard. It was the hardest thing I've done until I've done this current job. And and then I went straight into teaching in a grammar school in Canterbury, where I taught for 3 years. And then the pull of theatre and improv stuff, which I was kind of doing alongside my teaching. I started doing kind of courses in comedy and clowning and stand-up and sketch.
Yeah, I've forgotten about the clowning thing.
Soho Theatre, I did a few different things. I started to just kind of curate my own training. So I was going every weekend to do various different training courses, mainly in physical theatre, clowning type stuff, because that was all very big at the time at the Fringe. There was a guy called Dr. Brown. That's his sort of stage. His stage name is Dr. Brown, but his actual name is Phil Burgers. So I don't know why.
Why is he not?
He doesn't use that? But he won the Edinburgh Comedy Award in like 2010 or something like that, and so I went and did his course, and it was all about that whole like Gaulier clowning thing of being comfortable with failure, essentially, and just finding or allowing your inner idiot to come forth and use that as the basis for your sort of comedic persona, whether you then choose to do stand-up on the back of that or acting or improv or whatever, that you've got this like tangible connection with an audience who just like you because of the sort of effervescent fool that you are at the heart of yourself and how you're letting that come out. You know, it's like knocking the ego away, which was very interesting. I think like it's, I don't know. I now look at things that are like Gaulier clown does a show. I sort of think, I don't want to see that. It's sort of not what I'm interested in anymore. But yeah, so I was doing that all the time alongside teaching. I was also sort of also doing spoken word poetry performance. I did like a poetry festival in Canterbury and got interviewed by the BBC, and they were like, Lucy Fennell, poet. So my partner calls me poet sometimes.
And then clowning is, I guess is clowning sort of like improv in that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of clowning. I probably can't speak for all clowns, but in the way I understand it, it's about often solo performance, but not always. And again, like talking about process rather than product, I guess, like doing sort of workshopped clowning stuff was around allowing the pain of failure to work for you, not against you. So, and there's a lot of it is about dismantling the ego of, oh, I've got a really great idea, because as soon as you think you've got a really great idea, often that isn't very funny. And it's usually watching someone think they've got a good idea, but watching them fail at it that's funny. And I especially enjoy bouffon clowning, which is, it's almost the thing you do before you do clowning. It's like, it hinges on, it's like the whole tradition of, in medieval society, I don't know, this is not a history lesson, but the outcasts, often people who had any sort of physical disabilities and things like that might have been, or, you know, people who were outcasts from society, who on sort of the Fool's Day could come into society and perform for everybody else their satire of what they saw of society through the cracks. I mean, it's more of a sort of apocryphal tale, really. It's not, I don't think it's meant to be taken literally, but so they'd come in and do their parody of the king, or their parody of these people in power. So these sort of disempowered people taking the piss out of the powerful people in society. And so somebody you could look up is like Red Bastard. He was at the Fringe.
Yeah.
So his
was that he did Lie to Me, didn't he? Was that his show?
So he's a bouffon performer, Eric Davis, who does it. And so it's like clowning, where the clown is like innocent and wanting to learn and always optimistic and always has a great idea. The bouffon is a little bit more shrewd and kind of like draws you in and then uses it against you, you know? So when we was learning bouffon, you kind of wrap yourself up in lots of things, and you like mold yourself into different shapes and bind yourself up with tape and things. And then so it's very physical theatre in that way. And then you just like do a thing, and if they hate you, the audience pelt you with tennis balls. So it's about like feeling the pain but then enjoying it, and it's a sort of a strange vibe to it in that way, but I certainly enjoyed it. I haven't done it for years, but and I don't know if it informs anything I do now. Maybe it does. I don't know. At some point, by the way, before we skip on to my job now, we must talk about when I was a high dive presenter of a high dive stunt show in a theme park.
Oh, Lucy, you are just the most perfect guest. This is brilliant.
Yeah, so I was a teacher, and then I left teaching because I was offered the chance to do I'd already been doing kind of improv and workshops and things alongside my teaching outside of school hours, and doing stand-up and comedy and things like that. And then I got the chance to audition for Impromptu Shakespeare, which is an improvised Shakespeare show, which I've been in for 10 years now. We're all, there's a point where like I don't think any of us are under 30 now. So yeah, veterans, I think is the name. So yes, so I joined that, and it was because I had to leave my job in order to do it, really. And so I did, which was a big move. And it kind of coincided with a lot of life changes in my life and relationship changes and things like that as well. But these are all catalysts for change, and it was quite a good thing in the end. So I went and did my first Edinburgh Fringe, which was amazing because I'd been there as a spectator, and just it was a dream come true to get to go and do it. Although I have to say, we were performing in exactly the same venue in the Underbelly as Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who was doing Fleabag when it was first up at the Fringe.
Oh, wow.
But it was like nobody knew who she was or what the show was, and they were trying to give away tickets to fill seats, and so they invited all of our improv group to go, and we were all so full of our own bullshit that we turned down tickets to Fleabag.
No.
Yeah. And so I haven't seen it. I didn't see it then. And then obviously it became everything it was. And I thought that is a lesson in humility because I really missed out. But I just was like, I don't know what this is. What is this? So I kind of, that opened up a time where I was doing, I guess, bits of teaching, bits of tutoring, some supply teaching, improv teaching, improv performing. And I was starting to kind of do things where I'd go into schools. So there was a school in Southampton where I was, well, that was before I moved to Southampton, but I was, going into schools and doing improv stuff and things like that. And then it just meant that there was occasionally very strange jobs I was doing. So a friend of mine used to run like a kind of, I guess, almost like children's party or entertainment kind of company. And there's a theme park local to where I grew up that I love talking about called Pleasurewood Hills. I implore you to go and have a read on their TripAdvisor and you'll soon get a flavour of it. It's one of my favourite things to do. So it's a theme park that was from the 80s. It started off in the 80s, and when it first started, when my parents used to go, it was just a climbing frame. That was all it was, and a barbecue area where you brought your own meat to barbecue. And it's kind of iconic, and it's still around. And in the 90s, it was home to Mr. Blobby and Noel Edmonds, and they had a show there. So it's a really strange place. But more recently, my friend got a contract with them to provide a high dive presenter for a high dive show, where there was a whole group of divers, performers, trampolinists, I guess you'd call them as well, stunt performers really, doing a sort of half an hour high octane outdoor diving show in the theme park. So it had a Mayan theme, like like a cenote. Am I saying that right? When there's a big hole in the ground and underneath is water in Mexico. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like
a
Central
cenote.
America.
Yeah, so it was like, so we had this
Latin
very
America,
big sort of MDF, pool painted orange. It was only 8 meters deep actually, and then they used to dive from 20 meters up in the air, was like the finale, and then at the side trampolines, and they'd do sort of trampolining and climbing up the wall with their legs and things like that, and there was a bit where they were set on fire, and I was the presenter. And I don't know like how well judged the theming of the show was, because I think I was like the British explorer who's come to meet all these strange Mayans who are diving into the, and so it had that kind of vibe. So I had like my basically Indiana Jones rope, hat, satchel, shorts, Timberland boots, and did that show 3 times a day, rain or shine. And the performers were really fun to get to meet. They were from all over the world, and and so I did that for like 2 summers. I mean, that is the story.
So what did you actually do? Like, what was...
So, hello, boys and girls. My name's Dr. Fosters, and today we're going on a great adventure together. After 3, can you say yeah? So I don't remember what it was, but something like that. And then I'd be like, just narrating the show, really. So it'd be like, what, you're going to do a dive? And then he'd like mime, and then he'd be like, what, like a fish? Like an alligator? Oh, and he'd be like doing actions and stuff. And then there'd just be a whole bit that was just sort of 10 minutes with music and me just going, whoa, yeah, wow, woo, just over and over while the music's going. Also like clap, 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 because there's like the music's happening, getting everyone to clap till their palms are red. And so I did all that. There was a terrible day where one of the performers broke his leg on stage, on the trampoline. Yeah. Ooh. And I had to kind of
work it into the act.
Work it in, just roll with it. Oh, ow! So poor chap. And so I had to kind of try and follow the protocol such as it was, and we got an ambulance there, and that was all fine. And he stayed in my parents' front room till he healed.
How long was that? 6 months.
It was quite a long while. Poor guy, because they'd been putting them up in caravans on the park site, but he couldn't get in. He'd had his leg pinned. So
oh my
he
God.
couldn't get into the caravan. So my mum just had him in, like, she moved a bed downstairs in our front room, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with the grandparents living in the front room. And poor, what was his name? I actually can't even remember his name now. But yeah.
And one day, did you like offer him something? He got out of bed, started dancing around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I just? You mentioned about the reviews.
Right.
I found a good review.
What review for what? Sorry.
Pleasurewood Hills.
For Pleasurewood Hills.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
So this is from April this year. 1 star. And it goes, well, what a bunch of rubbish. We went on a total of 3 rides because we'd had enough of the place. The first ride, about half of it was closed and squeaking. The second ride, one of the guns wasn't working. Third ride took 20 minutes to start for a 2-minute ride. Oh, and the amount of maintenance running around didn't add to the atmosphere. To top it off, a roller coaster ride got stuck for 20 minutes with people in it halfway up an incline. Fortunately, I wasn't on said ride, but our kids were so disappointed in it, it ruined our day out. Avoid. Go to Yarmouth Pleasure Beach instead.
Exactly.
Oh, and the woman we spoke to on the phone about it just moaned and huffed and puffed. Well done.
Yeah. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It really is. I sometimes just sit and just read them and tears rolling down my face. Honestly.
I bet it wasn't like that when you were there, though, Lucy.
Well, I got quite a few nice reviews about, there's just like a nice bit at the end where all the divers would line up and then all the children could come past and just high five them all. And they used to play Katy Perry's Raw. It was
classic.
It was very
Classic,
nice.
yeah.
There's something you said, Lucy, that I can't let go just yet.
Okay.
And that was that you said that some of the performers were set on fire, and you kind of and then you just moved on. As if it needed no further explanation.
So this is what would happen, right? So we'd be backstage, which was a mud trench because obviously it rained through the entire summer holidays. Anyway, the performer in question would. Let's say it was Renato, he would wear like a wet tracksuit. So they'd soak the tracksuit in water that he'd wear against his body.
They're going to say petrol.
No, because that's the next layer, Jacob. Then he would soak, they had a canister of petrol. They would soak a cape with a hood in petrol that he'd wear around him. Then he'd walk up, dripping in petrol, up the ladder onto the diving board, whereby he would be set alight by a pole with fire on the end. Then he'd go up in flames, hold it around him, dive in. Hopefully the wet tracksuit would be enough to protect him from burns until he jumped into the water and extinguished the flames. But like one day the canister of petrol fell over and the fire like dripped down off him and then set all the backstage on fire. So yeah. We do knife throwing in between to relax.
So I guess we should probably move on now to what you do currently. So yeah, tell us a bit about what you do at the moment.
Yes. So my job is an intimacy coordinator, which is somebody who, well, there's lots of different strands to it, but I guess the clearest thing to say would be that I am responsible for the sort of health and safety and advocacy and some of the legality, I guess, around staging scenes that include simulated intimacy, which is a whole umbrella term really, and or any nudity that happens in film and TV. So intimacy coordinator is specifically for film and TV. And then intimacy director is for any live performance where you're also handling those things because it's slightly different. Is
that something that's freelance or is that, are you attached to a company?
No, that's me. I've got an agent, but it's entirely me.
And I guess that, because when I heard about that, I thought that comes quite naturally out of the work you've done in improv
like the
and
high
stuff.
dive
Because, the high dive stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can see what happens when there's no intimacy and it all goes wrong.
Because it's a bit of it's a thing in improv, isn't it? Where if two people are doing a scene, one of them can't just like go and like snog the other one.
Well, they can, but they possibly shouldn't.
Yeah, but only if I guess it's been agreed in advance, so that's going to happen. But there's a whole set of good practice, I guess, about how to do that. So is that how you got into that through improv or? No,
not at all. I guess we've skipped out a whole section of stuff I was doing prior to that, but it's not hugely important. But I had a whole.
No, we can.
Well, I had a whole bit of time where I was working, kind of like I said, I was doing workshops in schools and stuff, and then I started to do that full time via working for a theatre. I was the drama engagement officer or something like that, and so. I started working as well in schools doing I guess kind of like PSHE type things. So I worked in a few pupil referral units. Did we talk about this, Jordan? I don't know if you worked. Did you? Why did I think that? No. Did you
No, I
work
mean,
with young
obviously,
people?
I helped out with the school in Southampton, didn't
You
I?
did.
But
That's why that's the
yeah,
connection. But I was working in, so I was doing stuff to do with consent, practice and things like that, and PSHE, and then I was working in theatre as well. And so the main link really into the work was that I was assistant directing a production of Jane Eyre, and we had an intimacy director come in to work on the scenes that had chemistry and romance and kissing and things like that. And I just thought it was really interesting and unusual, and it spoke to some of the stuff I'd kind of been doing as an assistant director that was around kind of helping the actors to help themselves, really. So like I was providing time for them to warm up really thoroughly, and I was providing like like a back roller and like vitamins and things. I mean, none of this is in my job now, but I was taking a very pastoral role as well as a creative role, and almost even a maternal role, I guess you could say. And so I found that quite interesting and tied in with not what I saw this guy was doing, but that nurturing element to the job that I don't lean on too heavily in the way I talk about the job now, because I found out that a lot of it isn't that. But I think that is how I thought I would suit it. So
Right.
the guy who came in is a guy called Enrique Ortuno, and he's in a company called Moving Body Arts, and they do fight stuff and like stunt stuff and choreography, but also intimacy. And so the other member of that company, Yaret Dor, was running like a taster workshop for intimacy professionals, or for people who might want to do intimacy as a profession, intimacy coordination and direction. And so I went along, did a whole day, and it was just fascinating. I hadn't thought about the application of consent work in theatre, and we were taking scripts and we were looking at how you would stage that stuff, but also how you would communicate around how you were going to stage it. And there was just a lot that interested me. And because I was quite impulsive and spontaneous, and this was like 2019, and because I was quite impulsive, I saw there was a year-long accreditation coming up. And so I signed up to that. And I had to go and do quite a lot of. I went and did a week of Lecoq physical theatre training, and did loads of CPD training around mental health stuff and bullying and harassment and LGBT training and loads of different things. And then I embarked on this year-long accreditation course, which ended just as the pandemic started, which was kind of funny because you're like, oh, I've trained in becoming an intimacy professional and now it's the least intimate time of our lives. No one's allowed within 2 meters of each other. Was this a bad choice? And so I learned loads on that course, including what sticks in my mind is we had the time to we went around art galleries and looked at kind of classical art and the way that different cultures or different sort of types of art have encapsulated intimacy and what that looks like, and the physical choreography of that and the shapes and things, and as well as the more pragmatic kind of paperwork side of things. And I did a lot of stuff around like non-violent communication, MVC, which is all about like feelings and needs, and a lot of it I guess is similar to stuff you would have in mediation training maybe. And I only ever intended to do it to take it back to theatre work. In fact I thought, oh, this will make me a really extra good director. And then the first day of my training in intimacy taught me that you absolutely can't be the intimacy professional and the director in the same show, because it's a huge conflict of interest. Because as an intimacy person, you're there to diffuse and be a third party to the power that's being held in the room by various people. And to be clear as well, people can hold power but not wield it in a way that is bad, right? Like, if you're a brilliant director who everybody really loves working with, who everyone wants to be around because they're so fun or so engaging or creative, that in itself holds a load of power. right? It's not
Mm.
all about the power to punish or the power to affect people negatively. Like, you can just be powerful because you're somebody people like to work with, and you can't get rid of that power however much you want to. So being somebody without a stake in the production means that you can help to kind of balance and aid that communication and open up that communication and clarify things and give choices and empower people to make decisions and stuff like that. And at its best, you're enhancing the quality of the performance, the authenticity of the performance, maybe, but you're also doing that within a realm of what the performers are. And I don't like using the word comfortable. I can tell you why, but like what the performers are willing to do, because the key here is as well is you might not be comfortable doing something, but you might be willing to do it, and you might be safe but uncomfortable, right?
Right. Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So if you've like just started a new job as an intimacy coordinator, what does that whole process look like from when you turn up first day to the end?
Yeah, it's always it's different. Every project is different. Um it's hard to know how frank to be. but the yeah, every production is different. We're such a new profession, so I think, you know, let's talk about TV and film because that's the majority of what I do. But they know how to work with the makeup team, right? They know what that is. They know what the makeup team will need from them, and they know what sort of time they'll need. They know what sort of space they'll need to do this. They know that it's perfectly acceptable that at the last minute they want to come in and just, you know, do checks for the actors and things like that. Whereas our job, I mean, I'm being a little bit facetious by saying that, but like our job is just the first thing we kind of have to do is remind or instruct productions about what it is we need in order to do our job safely and properly and you know, responsibly, because it is in itself a health and safety role, right? It's like being, in a way, like if you're the fire officer or you're the stunt coordinator or something like that, there's certain things you will need ahead of time, like information. So from start to finish, I guess you are brought onto a project, you'll receive the script. So we'll go through and we'll pick out things, and some of the things you might not expect that fall under intimacy, like people playing the part of like a dead body, or childbirth, or medical scenes, or like personal hygiene, or simulating going for a wee, or you know, stuff like that. People don't necessarily think, or even like scenes that involve, I don't know, somebody like a child in the bath and somebody who's not their actual parent in real life playing their parent and lifting them out of the bath or washing them, or, you know, so there's all sorts of applications to it. So we go through, I take all that stuff out, put it into a document that kind of outlines all those things. And then you'd start to have conversations. So you'd be having conversations with maybe producers or showrunners or writers, and certainly the director, about how we're going to set about achieving those scenes. So to give an example, like if you've got a scene with a character having a shower, obviously we'd expect that the character is naked in the shower, but the actor may not ever show any nudity, right? So we might just film them from the back and see their bare back, not including their buttocks or legs. Or maybe you'll film from the bottom and you see their legs with the water pooling going down the plug hole, but above we can have the actor dressed, you know? So we're looking at like, what do we need to see? Or does that character lean forward to turn off the shower and we actually do see a bit of side of their breast, for example? So that will all determine the sorts of conversations that have to come next around requesting nudity from an actor. So saying, well, look, we might see a bit of side breast. Is that something that you're willing to, you know, do? In which case that kind of opens up a whole other thing where we talk with costume and say, well, look, we might need nipple covers, or we might not, or like we need to have a conversation with legal about drawing up a nudity rider. So we'd have a scene specific for the shower scene, bit of writing that goes into that person's contract specifying that they're willing to show side of breast in that scene. But crucially, it doesn't mean they're willing to do it on every other scene as well, right? Because the context will change somebody's consent levels, possibly. So all these conversations start to happen, and there's a lot of back and forth as negotiations happen, and yeah.
Is it something that is now required, like legally required, that a production have an intimacy coordinator,
No,
or it's just something that's become more the
it's
norm?
best practice, but it's not
Yeah.
a legal requirement. Yeah, I think it's slightly different in the US, but yeah, I think certainly everyone's got on board with the need for somebody. It's become best practice and kind of expected practice.
Are you able to tell us what kinds of things you've worked on?
Yeah, I can talk about some of the past things I've done. So, just trying to think of sort of highlights. The first thing I worked on was This Is Going to Hurt, which is the
The
Adam
Adam
Kay
K thing.
Oh,
thing,
wow,
yeah,
okay,
with Ben
yeah.
Whishaw, yeah, which was really amazing. I worked on that was the first thing I worked on because a colleague sort of passed on a few days to me to work on it, because and I'd read the book and I was a big fan of the book and Adam Kay's work, so yeah, I enjoyed doing that. But again, classic example of it being to do with sort of childbirth rather than sex, So yeah, that's kind of interesting. An interesting one on that, and kind of not talking too specifically, but just to sort of take a step sideways from that work. An interesting thing is, like, even if you're showing a prosthetic genitalia or body, so if you're thinking about like childbirth scenes and things like that, where you're needing to show prosthetic baby emerging from a prosthetic vulva, right? The actor whose body is being portrayed via that prosthetic still needs to sign up that they are willing to show nudity because it's perceived as their body.
Yeah.
And they're so realistic looking. So even though it's a prosthetic, there still needs to be a conversation of, are they willing to, are they okay to sign that they're willing to show that prosthetic vulva as though it's their own, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
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 Is it hard not to giggle?
Do you know what? It's so much at stake. It feels like there's so much at stake all the time that it just feels deadly serious to me. Like afterwards, I guess there is like a sort of out of body experience of, wow, this is such a strange and interesting job, and some of the minutiae, I guess, that I end up engaging in, some of those conversations, everything becomes very detailed and like minutiae is the best way to describe it. You're talking about all these little things, little moments, body parts in isolation, very clinical, yeah. And so afterwards you do sometimes think, all that, and we're talking about showing buttocks, or and you've had a sort of email back and forth thing going on. So no, in the moment I absolutely feel so far from giggling because it's just it feels very high. It is very high stakes because of it being a health and safety thing, and there's a lot of volatility on set as well. Stuff changes at the last minute, and I always say this, that like obviously a lot of the perception of this job is that it kind of emerged from the Me Too movement, but it was actually going on before that. It existed prior to, Harvey Weinstein and all that. And I think because of that link, people kind of see it as, some people see it as a bit of a like going in to be the superheroes who save people from sexual predators. And obviously there is that aspect of it, in that as anybody should look out for anything like that that's going on, and we should all be aware of reporting things that we might notice going on. A lot of the time our job is all about just closing up gaps in communication and just linking things up. Like, so much of it comes about through people not being people are well-meaning, but just there's a lot going on. We're one tiny cog in a whole big production, and so we're just there to monitor and take care of that aspect, and all the things that it encompasses, and joining up all these different departments. So yeah, so no, I don't giggle, which is why I have to go to the Edinburgh Fringe and have a good giggle, because it's not a giggly job. It's not.
No.
So we come now to the final section, which is where we find you a dream job. Do you actually have a dream job already?
I have a job that I dream about a lot in a sort of anxiety way. And I don't think that's what you mean.
A nightmare job.
Yeah, this could be the evil podcast. This could be the evil spin-off.
We'll make this a Halloween special.
No, I'm very grateful for my job and I respect it and I'm glad I do it, but it is high octane for me. So I guess, can you design me a more relaxing dream job?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Is there anything like that has been a dream job at some point in your life, and it's something that you think maybe I would go back to that at some point later on?
Yeah, the truthful answer to that, I might genuinely go back to it or go to it, is I'd like to learn to be a masseuse.
Oh,
Okay. I mean, that would be, if we're talking on a scale of high octane to low octane, that you're jumping right from one to the other, aren't you?
Yeah. So I actually think one day I might do that. So I like that. I think it's worth saying that I would have always liked to have worked outdoors with animals. So I had horses growing up and things like that. So I'm quite outdoorsy. And I always thought it would be quite nice to have a sort of like therapy farm or something like that, like where people can go to relax and do sort of mindful things whilst looking after animals. So yeah, that would be great. A job where I'm outdoors all the time. But I also I'm never happier than being in sort of like a rehearsal studio and like making or devising a show together in a theatre context, because
Ooh.
I love that.
Okay, so how about this, where you can have your therapy farm, but you've also, within the therapy farm, you've got an open air theatre.
Yes.
And as part of the therapy sessions, obviously, if people are comfortable with it, they can help you work on sort of creative projects. A bit like, I guess, what we did in the schools, or what you did in the schools as well, where like teaching improv to the kids. It could be something like that, where it all maybe builds up to a fun little show that they can do.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I love an outdoor theatre space.
Mm.
So that's great.
And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, can you be an animal masseur?
Yes,
But
you
then-
can. Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure whether
Can
I
I
was
take
thinking.
my dog for a massage?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether I was thinking of that time that Bob Mortimer was on Would I Lie to You and claimed to be a dog masseur. Because I was thinking, is that why I think it's a real thing? Because of that. But is that actually a thing?
It is a real thing. Yeah, they do animal acupuncture as well, and all sorts of alternative therapies. You can even get pet insurance that includes them.
Animal surely the animal would, if you started jabbing needles into it,
No.
would be
No,
angry.
They get them all relaxed, honestly. And the really good thing about animal acupuncture is they can prove that it's not a placebo effect, because although it's interesting, because sometimes the placebo effect is on the owner of the animal and the owner's perception of the animal's improvement, right? But yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So why would you massage an animal?
If they've pulled a muscle, if they, I don't know. Like, I mean, my dog pulled a muscle in his neck and he was in quite a lot of pain. And so I think you could massage
So is that something you'd be interested in?
I hadn't ever thought of it, but in a hypothetical situation where I could be skilled enough to do it, absolutely, I'd be interested in that.
Oh yeah, this is your dream, Lucy.
Yeah.
You can have whatever you want.
Then yes, please. An animal masseuse.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got you're an animal masseuse on a therapy farm, and you've got some kind of amphitheatre there
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
What kinds of productions would go on in such
Animal
a...
farm for a start.
Just Animal Farm.
Yeah, just Animal Farm. Charlotte's
Okay.
Web.
Charlotte's Web.
Old MacDonald.
Could you massage a spider?
No.
Secret Life of Pets, Hotel for Dogs.
Those are
all of
films,
them.
Jordan. Have you heard of theatre?
Yeah, you can adapt them though, can't you? You're smart, you're creative, adapt them.
101 Dalmatians.
Sure.
Now, what we should say is, in this section, there are obviously it's a dream, but sometimes not everything is cracked up. What is cracked up to be. I don't know. Let's say maybe once a month in your productions, you have to in the same style of the guys diving. You have to set someone on fire for a little bit in your productions.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't. I refuse.
Okay, we've crossed the
You
red
refuse.
line straight away.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, we've got to work back from here
Yeah.
now. Okay, we know the line.
You've set up a
Okay.
utopia. I'm not going to set it on fire.
Well,
No, just a person or a pet if they're okay
Well,
with it.
Hog roast.
let me see if I can mediate this a little bit. Then so you're obviously.
Hey, come on, that's Lucy's job.
Do you live on this farm? Because like it's a.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah,
you're
that's
imagining?
nice. Yeah. that'd be
Okay,
nice.
right. So you're going to need staff, aren't you? Really, to kind of get all these
yeah.
animals to be doing rehearsals. And what kinds of animals do they normally have on those like farms? Where
Donkeys, llamas, alpacas, pigs, kuni pigs. Those are the special, like rare breed ones.
What's-
Sheep,
what are they?
goats, kuni pigs. They're like slightly ginger and hairy. Jordan.
Oh yeah, for the listeners who don't know what I look like, I am ginger.
Yeah, little goats, chickens, maybe some ferrets,
And these, you want all of these on?
horses, Shetland ponies, miniature little Falabella ponies. Yeah.
And what kind of? So if we had to get you some staff,
Oh,
Right?
I've just
Kuni
looked up
kuni.
Cooney pigs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'll have some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Handful
for
of
sure.
kunis.
would any
Yeah.
of the animals live in the house with you?
Dogs can live in the house. I'd let the pigs into the kitchen area. In and out, goats
In
maybe.
the kitchen areas in
Yeah,
in
like
the
with a
food,
stable
or-
door. No, like a stable door on the back door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got a kitchen that's flagstoned. You can wash that down easily. They can come in and out. Yeah,
Oh, this
it'd be
sounds really
so
nice.
very relaxing. And
Out of all the
idyllic.
ones we've done so far, this is the one that I want. The
Yeah,
most
I
as
want
well.
this one too. Yeah. Would you have people living there, or would it just be like people would come and visit?
It's not a
Would
commune.
it be like a retreat?
Yeah,
It's
not a cult.
It's
not
a
a cult.
kibbutz.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
No, I'd live there. I'd I'd have an annex for no reason because I wouldn't actually let my parents live in that. So just have an empty annex, and then
I hope they're
For the
listening.
Coonies.
yeah, and then and then maybe I'd have like I know the annex is for visiting theatre companies that are coming to
Visiting royalty.
Yeah, visiting royalty, visiting theatre companies or improv companies that are going to come and put on a show in the amphitheatre.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily need to always be in the show. Like,
I'm not the show.
You'd have
No.
it as a venue, or you'd be
Yeah.
coordinating.
Coordinating the venue, yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But you would do your own shows
I guess maybe. Yeah.
or things from time to time.
Do a bit of clowning.
Shakespeare.
Yeah,
Bit of
yeah, to
clowning.
no one.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
to the pigs and donkeys.
That's the other thing is that I'm imagining. So this farm, obviously rural, but is it within reasonable traveling distance of
It would have to be, yeah.
like London or something, so you
Yeah,
can
it
have
would
a
have
good
to be.
audience, people coming out, and you'd set it up as a venue,
Mm.
a bit like
Theatre on the farm.
oh,
Not
that sounds
funny.
really
It's
nice.
not funny. It's just actually a genuinely good idea.
Yeah, no. We're just not going to put this episode out, and we're going to go and set this up ourselves.
Yeah.
It's still the idea, because I think like my dad lives in Adelaide, and I think there's a comedy festival
Yeah.
that happens there, not
In
as well known
Australia.
as the Melbourne one, obviously, but
Yeah,
But he
Adelaide's
said-
Fringe.
yeah. But he said that there, like I guess unlike Edinburgh, it's quite common for people to set up like outbuildings and barns and things they have on their land or even their houses to be used as venues for the Fringe. So I can imagine that maybe you can advertise this as a kind of venue where people can come outside of London, have a big
Yeah.
open space. Obviously,
Yeah.
you've got British weather to account for, but
Well,
it could have a sunroof, the amphitheatre.
certainly.
Would you like that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think it's wise for it to be undercover. I think.
Yeah, made of
Yeah.
stone, like a stone sunroof. We could design that for you.
Okay.
Do you want a diving board? Just like
No,
the good old
absolutely
days.
not. No, thank you.
Oh, are you sure? Because like the middle of the amphitheatre could drop down like a bit of it, and then there's a pool underneath.
Do you know? I think that pool of water is still at Pleasurewood Hills. In fact, I know it is. They never took it down, so it's just rotting like putrid water.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you mean taking it down? Is it,
Well, as in
where?
like it needed to all be drained and like pulled apart and stuff. Sorry, my dog is barking, but
Oh, I can't hear him.
You
so-
couldn't hear it.
I
Okay,
can't
that's
hear
fine.
it, no.
Okay. And yeah, it's all just I think the amount of hedgehogs that might have fallen into that pool, and not been able to get back out.
And mosquitoes love
Or
that
children,
as well.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of
Mosquitoes
the
love-
reviews, actually. It was one of the kids.
I wouldn't be surprised.
One of the kids fell in.
Yeah. Yes.
But I guess in that scenario, you don't have your like intimacy coordinator skills being used so much, unless you're doing that for the shows that come along. And
No, it's a conflict of
Performing
interest,
own
wouldn't it
theatre.
be? I couldn't be doing that for my own theatre. So no, I wouldn't be using that. But I think
okay.
a lot of the stuff I've learned has underpinned a lot of the way I do other things anyway. It's just change. It's one of those things. It changes your whole outlook on all the relationships that you have and all of the ways you communicate. So, yeah.
What kind of working hours do you like to do? So, obviously standard is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But if you're in your dream job, when would you kind of work? I guess with this, it's very much like your life and your work are.
Yeah, it's
are
a
melded
farm, isn't
together.
it? So I guess you'd have to get up.
But are you like
Early,
I
wouldn't
guess
you? Yeah.
you'd have to be an early riser probably.
Yeah, I'm not usually. I'm quite a night owl. But yeah, in my job, I mean, the hours are just anything. Like you could be on set at 6 a.m. or you could be doing a night shoot where you start at 3 p.m. and go through till sort of 2 a.m. or something. So it's all sorts of different things. I had a wild one a few weeks ago where I did a day, then a night shoot, and then a day on
Oh my
different
God.
productions.
Did you just didn't sleep, or you just
Yeah,
straight
just-
through?
Well, I came home, I slept for like a few hours, and then went back out
Wow.
Wowee.
with driving in between.
Do you kind of imagine that when you're, at like retiring age? Do you imagine like being somewhere in the countryside like this would be somewhere you'd want to be?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd like to have a little cabin so I can do my massage business. And yeah, I'd like to have lots of animals. Yeah, I'd like to maybe even look after dogs or something like that.
Yeah.
Rescue dogs.
So when you said about being a masseuse, is that like? Because obviously we immediately went off on a tangent about animal massage, but is there something about being a normal masseuse that what is it that appeals to you about that?
I don't know. Basically, when I was growing up, I used to like get loads of different books out of the library, and I got like several different. I don't know why I was drawn to like there was a book on anatomy, and then there's like those like Dorling Kindersley books that with all lots of big pictures.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I
they
love them.
Yeah, and I think they might have had one on massage technique. So I was actually like a very good child masseuse by the age of sort of 12 or 13. And so I used to give my mum foot massages and back massages and stuff. And I just found I'm very gifted at it. I know exactly what to do, where to press. I'm sure I could be more technically good at it. But
Yeah.
I've just got I've just got quite a good feeling for it. I also like going and having massages. So I sort of, I don't know. So I've got an inkling that I'd be quite good at it. And I just feel like in the future, with all the consent knowledge that I've got, on a very serious note, it might be quite good to combine that. And I'd really like to offer massage to people who maybe feel like they're not able to access it for any sorts of reasons, maybe that being sort of like gender transition reasons or trauma reasons or disability reasons maybe. So yeah, just a way of kind of offering people the chance to experience the power of positive touch, consensual positive touch in a therapeutic way. I think I'm doing a bit of self-massage now of my shoulders.
Well, then this kind of farm idea that we have, I think that would be quite a nice setting for that, wouldn't it? If you can have this business and say to someone, if you're into animals, then it's your lucky day because you can do that. That would be quite a nice package, wouldn't it? Like to offer, like
You could be really
first of
busy.
all, come out and see the spiders and things that I've got in my barn, and then
It's quite creepy actually. Come and see the spiders I've got in my barn.
Do you need
Ever
a
since
relaxing time in
Yeah.
the countryside? Come see the spiders.
I'm sorry, I just really got fixated on it when you mentioned Charlotte's Web, and now I can't stop thinking about the barn being full. I'm imagining the spider from Charlotte's Web, which is quite a
Yeah.
nice spider. Spider? So,
Quite a nice
Sparta.
spider.
yeah, and then they can go out and see the animals, like what are they called? The cuckoo pigs or
Cooney.
Cooney.
Yeah.
cooney pigs, and then come in and have a nice massage. I guess if there was a massage in a film, that would be the kind of thing that you'd do. Wouldn't it? Be
Absolutely.
like- Has that happened
and
before?
have done, yeah. Only with an incidental background bit where there was just happened to be like in a spa setting, and there was people being massaged. So they had a actual masseuse. And
Oh, so even then, you'd still need to do that. Even if...
yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, this is perfect. This is a perfect, beautiful job.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds like you get the benefits of early, because it's not retirement, but it's almost like early retirement because you get to go straight and start living that kind of retirement fantasy, but you can still do as much work as
Yeah.
you want, basically, and be
Yeah.
nice and comfortable. So
I thought it through. It's going to be
you
good.
have. There we
Yeah.
go.
When can
I
I
think-
retire?
Well, I think we can shake on that.
Yeah.
That's a good job. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the most wholesome. I mean, when you actually hear the episodes we've already recorded, you will see how differently those conversations.
Yeah, they'll just tell us this like really lovely dream, and we're like, but then this horrible thing happens, and how are you going to deal with it?
Yeah, I won't forget that you tried to set my therapy farm on fire.
That was a bit.
Jordan.
Oh, it's just a guy. It was just a guy there.
We didn't introduce setting people on fire into.
Just a little,
Into this
just a little
conversation.
guy. Just a little guy. He's got a wet tracksuit on. It'll be fine.
The only thing, and I won't take no for an answer here. Well, I may have
Wow,
to.
that's not consent, is it? Blimey.
Is that the only thing I will say as a price is that we're going to set you up as a supplier of little bits of butter for a local hotel.
That's fine.
So a guy's going to come by maybe once a week, and you
Wow.
just hand him over ice bucket full of little bits of butter.
Butter
like-
curls.
Yeah, butter curls. And then he'll go off again, and that's it. But
That is
you're like a
fine.
supplier, just for like a little local B&B or something.
That's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that. The only thing from making butter curls is you get a very shiny thumb.
What? Why?
As you're using the tool, you run your thumb along the butter again and again and again. You get a very buttery thumb.
I thought you meant like permanently, like your
It
thumb
is
becomes
sort
like
of permanently.
Can we call the podcast that? Can we call
Buttery
it Buttery
thumb.
Thumb?
Yeah. Sure.
Well,
Oh,
I think that we've got the lovely job, but we've also adhered to the format by giving you one little stipulation. So tick, 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 tick. This has been lovely. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Lucy.
wow.
No, thank you.
I did not know that we were going to have such a huge variety of past jobs. That was a real delight to have all those things popping up.
That's age for you. When you've been working since the age of 13.
just grafting, mate, non-stop.
The first moment when it was legally possible.
13th birthday, your mum. Get down the hotel.
Get down there.
Get down there, Buttery Thumb. Start grafting.
And I'm going to be keeping an eye on the credits of films and TV shows I watch from now on, looking to see
Yeah, do.
who the intimacy coordinator was, whether it was Lucy Fennell.
Sometimes it will be.
Sometimes it will be.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very undulating and interesting career summary there with Lucy. Lucy has made a living out of dissecting and understanding comedy. So I'm not surprised that we felt the format slightly creaking under the strain of her analysis there. But, sometimes you have a really clear idea in mind of what your dream job is, and we don't want to spoil it for anyone. We want to ultimately give them their dream job and make sure that they know the risk of taking it on. And, Lucy's no fool. She knows what she's getting herself into with all those animals. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that. What did you think?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I didn't realise Lucy had that many jobs until we spoke to her. And actually, there was a job that she told us about straight after recording.
Yeah.
Which was that she used to engrave wooden spoons with people's names, like by request. So there was even more that we could have spoken about.
Yeah. Because there was so much from that recording that we got, so much material, and of course we had to cut the episode down a bit because there was so much. But then immediately after we finished the recording, we immediately received a voice note from Lucy saying, "Oh, by the way, I used to engrave wooden spoons as well. I forgot to talk about that."
Oh man, yeah, it was a really fun app, really fun app.
Yeah, and we've got it's quite multimedia this episode because we're going to have some extra. We've got a couple of extra photos that Lucy's given us. One from when she was working on Trisha, and a couple of other things that we'll share on social media. So go and have a look at that now because that'll be up.
And well, it's a good thing you mentioned the social media, Jacob, because you need to go give us a follow. We are pretty much Careers Mare podcast everywhere, or we're at Careers Mare. We're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Go look us up, give us a follow, and yeah, like Jacob said, we're going to be posting a lot of material there around the pod, a few little teasers to really get your appetite whet for a listen.
Absolutely, and just like to give a quick shout out to my Uncle Joe, who asked me to give him a shout out on the podcast. So hi, Uncle Joe.
Yeah, big love to you, Joe, wherever you are.
Yeah. So episode 4 will be out on the 15th of October.
Hi there, this is Jacob from the future from when the rest of this was recorded. Actually, it's the 16th of October, not the 15th, sorry.
With a brand new, ever so new mystery guest. So do come back for that. And like Jordan said, please do follow us on our social media and stuff. And please also give us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It all helps. We're a little wee podcast. We're just starting out, making our way in the world, and every little helps.
Thank you.
Bye.